Hey guys, Shay Ryan Douglas here, and today is a really exciting conversation because I'm joined with Miriam and Adam and Souvereign, and we're going to open up the discussion around We Are Open Circle and how these practices and these principles are really important for our day today. You can probably hear a plane going off in the background, but that's the beauty of doing these lives, is that we get this live interaction, live engagement. And so we're going to be talking about, communities, in-person communities, online communities, tools for community, practical ways that we can come back into harmony, come into coherence with, most importantly, ourselves, and then also with others. So I'm excited to have this conversation with Miriam and Adam, who've got great experience in facilitating facilitators. So this is really exciting. They go beyond and above in so many ways. And Souvereign has actually just been a part of a recent training. And I'm excited to hear how that went for you, Souvereign, because you've got years of experience as well.
I hear crickets.
Yeah, my internet just
now.
had a little glitch.
And so, Souvereign, maybe you could give us a little bit of context as to how We Are Open Circles was kind of initiated and what that even means. And then we could really explore like the importance of this in today's world, particularly with everything going on right now. It seems really relevant that we work together in localized community groups, in person as well as online, with these tools to be able to overcome any challenging confrontation or any difficult conversation, so that we can come back into coherence and come back into understanding with one another. And how did this come about? Because the last 12 months we've been doing feeling-based relating a couple of times a week, and the Brave New Life community has been growing exponentially. And then this seems like we hit the kind of ceiling, and then We Are Open Circle just kind of exploded the ceiling off the house.
That is a very beautiful way to put it, and it was very timely. Last night I had a beautiful inspiration to share what the successional kind of buildup of the momentum was, and where in our Brave New Life ecosystem there was this sense-felt awareness, not because I'm so intelligent, it's part of the field that we each co-navigate in, that allowed me to recognize that we were getting ready for succession, because there needs to be a certain group coherence about shared desire, attraction, willingness to take what one would call maybe to take responsibility, but really to involve oneself. And without there being predefined roles for that sometimes can be challenging in online community structures. Like, because as far as it can go, you can make somebody an admin or a moderator, and it's yay, and then they can go and police other people around, and that's like that's not a role that is functional, particularly in the Brave New Life community. But because we've had such a love-filled and love-orientated, supportive ecosystem from the start, I noticed that we were getting ready for a form that I didn't know how to put into words. And so what I brought into Brave New Life was the feeling-based relating, based on our human nature, on our sovereignty, based on syntropy. How would we do it in nature as the humans that we are? And that level of relating is beautiful, particularly one-on-one. And we've explored and kind of trained ourselves for the past months in doing that in larger groups. But to say that we had any definition or any actually unpacking of what a circle even is, what that archetype means, what is the form, and what are the different patterns in the weave of such a circle, so that what Imani and I brought naturally into this space of Brave New Life, and you did as well, and some have as a natural kind of feeling, but everybody has their own take on that. I really was looking for a shared language, a shared experience through which a shared comprehension and a shared pulse in a community becomes a shared story. And when something, in my experience, becomes a shared story, it has the capacity to live into the next generation. And when the timely event came, because I just knew that it had to happen. And I had looked around for quite some time in different areas, and I was just like, it's okay. Yeah. Well, and then from our own Brave New Life community, Rebecca, she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, I think that you may be interested in this. And so I was, of course, very busy, Mr. Business, and being all important. And I was like, oh, I don't really have time for that. And I felt the tap on my shoulder. And so I know when to pay attention. And so I spent the due diligence to look at it. And that really took me like 10 minutes, because I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is it. This is great. Okay, let's make this happen. Because for any community to be able to thrive onwards, succession is required. And succession means a handover of kind of like primary carrying capacity of not so much roles and responsibilities, but kind of being responsible for the main flow that happens within an ecosystem. And I relate, as many people know, this all to the agroforest. And that's where succession is, like, without it, it just gets stagnant. And without that process of death, then there is no capacity for growth, because a certain amount of death needs to incur in order to create the space. And so we went through a beautiful process, and I went through a death process. It was deliciously not pleasant, because I knew that was happening. But it doesn't matter how much psychological awareness someone has about how this works in human ecology, you still have to go through the death cycle. And so for me, it was just such a graceful process, because navigating the up-leveling and going through the training myself with Adam and Miriam, it brought a lot up for me, because it showed me all my quote-unquote limitations in where I hadn't shown light. But that's what an ego mind does. It kind of looks like, oh, well, I didn't retrieve those gems yet. Oh, now I'm not special, and I'm gonna no longer be special. So this has been a beautiful process for me to go through, because it's a continual journey of humbling. And so I'm just really delighted after the training and having come into a bit of a rebirth and a reboost of energy to be able to be with all of you here. And yeah, it's a great time for me to kind of step back and at the same time kind of lean in even more, because there is just more what I call quantity and quality of consolidated life in our ecosystem. There's more of us that feel inspired about the same inspiration that I've had, but they also are enabled to walk with that. And that may be something that we can go into, like, what are we going to be enabled with? We got one more training coming up.
That's awesome, Souvereign. I love your way in articulating it. And I'm curious to hear from you, Miriam, facilitating the training. How did you get into this, and why did you think this was relevant? Or kind of what's your background story of like what led you to this point in time to be, sharing these opportunities with people?
Thank you so much for that invitation, Shay. Can I disrupt it? The invitation, I mean. Because I'm kind of stuck on something that Shay said. That Souvereign said. Someone was like, well, so what does this enable? And I thought, wow, it'd be so cool. I will tell my story. I'm not avoiding that. But it'd be so cool just to take a moment now to actually sense and feel that enabling. Part of what we do is just in this moment, just to take a moment, wherever you are listening, just to look around you. What time of day it is, your feet on the ground, or just the room or the land around you, just taking a moment to take it in and inviting it in. And taking a moment also to check in with yourself. How are you in this moment? What are you bringing with you to this conversation? It's so simple. And yet so profound. That invitation just to invite more into this present moment of where we are. And because, Souvereign, you were talking about your vision, I also would love to invite in something for me which opens a different form of knowing. And so I wanted, before I will get to my story, Shay, but before that, I wanted to read this poem, which was coming to me as you were talking. It's called A Vision, and it's a poem by Wendell Berry. And I'd like to invite everyone who's listening to this to take a moment to allow yourself to be in your space as you listen to this, to let these words filter in any way that you would like in this moment. A Vision by Wendell Berry. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like low-growing trees on a ruined place, renewing, enriching it, then a long time after we are dead, the lives our lives prepare will live here, their houses strongly placed upon the valley sides, fields and gardens rich in the windows. The river will run clear, as we will never know it, and over it, bird song like a canopy. On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest, an old forest will stand, its rich leaf fall drifting on its roots. The veins of forgotten springs will have opened. Families will be singing in the fields. In their voices, they will hear a music risen out of the ground. Memory, native to this valley, will spread over it like a grove. And memory will grow into legend, legend into song, song into sacrament. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds will be health and wisdom and indwelling light. This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility. This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility. I couldn't resist reading that because, Souvereign, everything that you said was that last line. And I just want to acknowledge your bravery and your courage as a leader of this community, to have said what you said, and also to be willing to go through a death so that new life can continue to come back again and again. So thank you for doing that. Just wanted to recognize you in this moment. That's not my story, but that's the story of this work.
That's so powerful, Miriam. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate taking a moment to just check in. And from what I understand, this process is really about coming together to check in and just check in with each other. And maybe, Adam, I'd be curious to hear from yourself. You could elaborate on that a little bit more as what's involved in We Are Open Circle kind of community processes and the way that you facilitate these circles.
Sure, yeah. As Miriam was reading that, I was looking off to some clear cuts beyond the forest of the property that I'm on right now, which has been replanted and growing, and I'm attempting to steward. And there's definitely a lot of hardship in that. So I got lost in that. So thank you, Miriam. Kind of helped me forget that I don't like public speaking, and I feel, especially not live on the internet. So help me be here. Yeah, I want to go, if it's okay, I guess it's going to be okay. You wouldn't probably say no to this, to the end of kind of the end of what we do, which is also the beginning, because our process is circular. But what we call stage 4, which is like the end, if you're going through 1, 2, 3, and 4, is about vision. And I want to bring that in because it's like, where are we going with this work? And it's so related to what Souvereign was talking about in the poem that Miriam brought in. The way that we think about, have learned about, and feel about vision is that we don't own it. You know, we have so many famous leaders out there, or visionaries, and it starts to seem to human beings, I think, or definitely to me, that some people are visionaries and the rest of us kind of live our lives, you know, at half speed or something, or we're followers, or we participate as cogs in somebody else's machine. But the way that we and I have thought about vision is that it comes from somewhere else. And because we have an identity, like I'm Adam sitting here, I'm the, you know, co-founder of We Are Open Circle. I'm a facilitator, I'm a trainer, I'm all these things, that I have a vision. I had a vision, or Miriam had a vision. But at the end of the day, I can't tell you where that vision came from. I can sort of name all the circumstances going back that might have brought us to create this organization. But where did all those circumstances come from? It's like, if we look back, even the scientific paradigm, back to the Big Bang, the origin story, it's like no one can say what happened before that. No one can say that. And vision is like that for human beings, and for communities, and for companies, and for social profit organizations. It's like, yeah, maybe one or a few people had a vision, but then and created something around that. But it's that ownership problem that's also part of the solution. And that solution is what Souvereign was talking about. Like, we're stewarding a vision. Maybe it was the earth that dreamed it, or maybe it was spirit that brought it, that delivered it, or whatever, however we want to conceive of that. It's much bigger than any of our individual identities. And each of us have access to a part of a bigger vision, or many visions. And we call this to not get it confused with like a vision statement or a visionary individual. We call it animating spirit. And some people might call that God, or some might call it, you know, whatever, mystery, many other words for it, that inspires us to do something. But organizations and communities start to fail when we forget that we don't own that. We're just stewarding it. Just like everything that's good on this earth and in this life, we're stewarding. Even these bodies, you know, we're stewarding them for a period of time, and then we drop them. And who knows where we came from, and who knows where we're going. But we have a vehicle right now. And that vehicle of vision, it also carries people together. It brings us together. Like Brave New Life community, vision, bringing people together. And so if I go back to the beginning, the first step in starting to forget or unlearn that we are owners of any of this stuff is to start to listen to other people, to listen to ourselves, to maybe sit with a reality that we're not right about everything, or maybe anything completely, and that we can sit with our wrongness, our doubt, the limited frames of our biases, all that stuff that sort of fixes us in these positions that we find ourselves in. And it's so, getting a little more mechanical here, it's simply a process of sitting and listening to each other. And because we have such ingrained patterns of responding and reacting and fitting everything into a box that our mind is already categorized, the container that we create and that we train other people to create is one that helps us to step out of those limited frames. And it's pretty simple. There's 5 elements that we share, which are about form. And there's 4 intentions, which are kind of so big that it's impossible, we hope, to do them right, or to say if anybody else is doing them right. So we don't get into like, you're doing it right and you're not doing it right, or I got it and you don't have it. it's a moving sort of target and it's also can be interpreted in many different ways. So it can fit into different containers, different cultural containers. So we just do a lot of that, a lot of listening. Miriam and I have a lot. I don't want to say we have a lot of experience. We have quite a bit of experience in a lot of different environments, everything from prisons to corporate organizations to family systems, nonprofits, many different types and different places. And so we just sort of have a lot of stories to add to the mix about how this works and helping people to see beyond what they might feel like is a limitation in their facilitation or what's happening. So we share that too. And some theory. We bring in some science and some of the wisdom practices that we've learned along the way as ways of understanding what's going on. And one last thing, helping to tell the big story of what it is to be a human being through this practice.
That's huge. I love the way that you explained it, and just simply coming together and listening to others, which it sounds so simple, but from my experience over the last 12 months in feeling-based relating in the Brave New Lifestyle, can be extremely challenging. Like Souvereign mentioned it, all the busyness and the things to do, and I got to go here. And so often I find even with myself, I don't give myself the time to check in with me, let alone a whole group of coming together of community. So it seems to be really poignant time for this kind of work. I mean, being alive as a human being, it's always going to be important to have open ways of relating with others. And so for this practice to come in and this process that you guys are bringing in and teaching to the world, I feel is hugely significant. And I'm curious to hear from Souvereign your insights of doing the training the last 3 times. I'm aware that you got another training coming up for Australian time zone, which I'm super pumped about. I'm very excited to go on the journey with you guys. And or maybe Miriam, you want to share like what's it like when people kind of start? You said it's like a 4-stage process. They're going through stage 1 and maybe you're seeing these light bulbs go off and they're getting these huge insights and you can see people really starting to catch on to it. Or is it kind of like that poem where you got to go down into the pit, you got to experience the hardship and then you kind of come out the other end and blossom out like a flower? What's it like from your experience?
I hate this answer when other people give it to me, but it depends. It depends. And, one of the things is that as we, or I can say as I opened up to my listening, and I can maybe feed some of my story in here, I kind of was someone who noticed that however hard I tried to make change in my life or in the world, it seemed to go around in circles. And that was kind of infuriating and depressing. And so I decided that I was actually going to try and do something about it. And I hear this story a lot. What it did was, when I became very committed to that, is that in order for me to listen to that, to really listen, it brought me to my knees. I needed to surrender the things that I held most precious. And I have tears in my eyes as I say this because that's not easy. That's really tough to actually like give up things that I wanted or thought I wanted or that I didn't know I wanted and pretended I didn't, but I really did. And to really just give them up so that I could listen in a different way. And I think that's why the answer is it really does depend. And it's kind of like, it's this sort of the aha moments are for me, the realization of what I'm hanging on to or seeing other people go, oh, I didn't even realize that I was seeing that was actually a shutter, it's something that I was not seeing. And suddenly the aha moments is like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was shutting that out. And then the process for me was then looking at then what that brought up in my life and in my community. And it brought up tension. And then I had to learn about my relationship with tension and, understand that, tension is creative tension of transformation. And tension, what enables me to ride that tension towards change. I was really, really confused today. I've been confused all day. And in the past, when I was confused, I would have gone, that's wrong. I shouldn't be confused. I should be clear. In fact, I still did that. I admit it. I'm like, why? I shouldn't be confused. I should know what I'm doing. But I've been taught through the work that we've done is that when I feel that confusion, when I'm in that space of like surrender, that is actually the place of transformation. That is actually the place, a birthing place of something new. And then the work typically, particularly in community, looks at like, okay, now we've got that experience. What does it look like to make decisions? What decisions are we making consciously and unconsciously all the time? And how do we make decisions in the communities that we're a part of? And how do we be aware of the impact of our power on others and others' power on us? And then finally, as Adam said, we go into this area of what does it mean to travel through rites of passage together in a community? What does it mean to transform and change together? And this is like such a huge question for us now as a society and culture. It's no one is instigating this change and this transformation. It's happening on all levels, all around us. So what is it to ride this change together and remain cohesive, to actually support each other in it, beyond the words of support, beyond the ideals of support, in our day-to-day, how we relate to each other as we make decisions and filter through information. So that's the journey. And from a personal point of view, the work is alive as a facilitator for me because it is always alive. Adam and I go into any group, and there were a couple of people who attended both the trainings. While the form is simple, as Adam said, and the elements are very, very simple, what happens in a group is alive and changes. And so, that is where the excitement and the aliveness comes from. What is it to be in and to navigate that aliveness in that moment? So every single training, we have people come back to our trainings like, 5 or 6 times because they're like, whoa, what's going to happen this time? So yeah, it's alive. And there is a process, but it is always alive.
That's amazing. And those are big questions around transformation, changing, larger systems by starting with what we've got right in front of us, the aliveness of our relationships, the people that, we're surrounded with, and having these tools seem to be, as you've expressed, very, very important. And Souvereign, I'd be open to hearing your perspective on maybe answering some of these amazing, brilliant questions that Miriam has brought up, or if you want to share a little bit on your experience after doing the course as well, I'd just love to hear from you, man.
Yeah, great. So beautiful. Loving everything that is surprisingly disruptive in my little world of experience. It's just so nice to have that fresh and authentic, different, just, it's like, oh, yay. Oh, this feels good. I get to actually ground myself and center myself. And then I get to feel where I was before I came into the moment of actually looking into my environment. And it's a beautiful reminder, because it's one of the takeaways that I got for myself out of the training, to be more present. But then it becomes a journey of obviously integrating that through practice. And so many beautiful things you share, Miriam. And I've been really enjoying listening to more of what you are delving into together in your podcast and through your website that I've been kind of slowly but surely getting through. Because the way of relating to life is something in relationship to circle, community. It is, from my own comprehensions, it's so relevant for us to have an expanded awareness of what life even means. And in order to have a expanded relationship to life through the syntropic lens that I view everything through, if one is not curious and therefore willing to come into awareness, then it becomes very unlikely that one will learn something new, because one is actually not open to listening, to being informed by the agroforest. It's as simple as looking at what we have been taught to call weeds, and they're just plants. And everything in life performs a function with purpose. So if I can just question the function, then I may be able to discover what its purpose is. And this is what I've come to experience and take away from the training, is that that word listening, and almost the archetype, that the realm that is beyond just like, yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying because I see your mouth moving and I hear that there's sound bites coming into my ear, but I'm listening. There's so much more depth to that, and many of our Brave New Life following know that I've dissected language quite substantially in some of the courses that I've offered, just to kind of see this way of seeing new possibilities and seeing beyond certain word forms, that there's more depth, or that they are actually illusions. And this is with many words. They have an intrinsic meaning, but they also have a collective meaning. And what I feel that we are coming out of is in this westernized mentality that has lost its connection to the ancient mythical relationship, to the energetics of what syntax and language through sound and feelings actually is. It's been stripped down of a lot of its intrinsic meaning. And we've just been taught, you have to listen, in that way. So listening is not necessarily for many people associated to something like, let me just sit into that and really just make myself present. And for me to go through the training and to get such an expansion on my capacity to listen while I'm talking, to listen to the birds that are there. And so the field of awareness that has grown for me simply, and this is the beauty of my experience of being a human being, when we speak to images that are perceivable with our inner vision, or what we may call our awareness, when that becomes languaged, we are able to perceive it. And because I received so much it's shown so much new light on how to see the world, and particularly what a circle is. I thought it was just, this thing, right? And I know there's the circle wheel, and there's all this symbolism around the circle, but it became a multi-dimensional kind of form where it became alive. And that is something that I haven't really experienced before, other than, listening sometimes to what I've been channeling in the past. And I'm like, wow, that's almost coming alive for me. But that's just me having my own experience, because I'm receiving stuff and then I'm getting all excited that came through. But to receive that on something so pragmatic, so practical, so grounding, and so relevant in terms of how do we humans do it together? Because one thing that I knew is the reason that communities don't work is because they don't know how to relate. They don't know how to listen, because they've never been taught that. But there is a form that, and there's many structures and ideas and ideologies that I have researched over the months. But there is, with what Miriam and Adam are sharing, in my experience, there is a form that has an inbuilt mechanism for resiliency if there's willful participation on behalf of the self. This is not just feeding this component like, oh, you just get some dot points, this is how you have a meeting, and then you can get shit done and you can keep going and building your community. Because once the community is built, then what? Then you have to meet each other outside of the projects, outside of the doing, and then you're in the being. And that's where the real training, and that's where the real being a human being resides for me, is in the listening, in the living together, in the breathing together, in the hearing together. And I feel that through my experience of the training, and I'm excited to go and do it again, I got so much more depth that obviously I'm not able to share from, which is life enhancing. And this would be life enhancing for anybody wanting to step into that.
That's great, Souvereign. Thanks for sharing, man. I love your perspective on life, and I've learned so much in just relating with you on a being and doing level, so much about language as well. And I'm excited to open that can even further with Miriam and Adam. Maybe one of you would like to share kind of the opportunity and the invitation for others to join on the training, which is coming up, which is for Australian time zone. I'm so excited. Yes. It's like, we're getting up in the middle of the night to do an online Zoom is not fun. So I'm super pumped by the what you've presented and what you're offering. Maybe you could elaborate on that for us, Adam or Miriam.
Sure. Yeah. So we're offering this. It's 4 days, 4 hours each. Miriam will have to give me the days because I'll get it mixed up between the Americas timing and days in Australian. But yeah, 4 days, 4 hours each. That we do a lot of breaks. We try to get a little bit of movement in when we can. It's not all just looking at boxes on the screen. And, as people will know, we encourage them to fall asleep if they need to, or, listen in ways that are unexpected. And it's very experiential. So when we do a facilitator training, which this is what this is, we start with the experience. We want people to have an experience and then make their own meaning from it, and then share that meaning with each other. Because as Souvereign was saying, this is archetypal, meaning it's in all of us, but we all have a different way of talking about it, of feeling it, of expressing it. And so we really, in a sense, we're facilitating the group to make meaning of this experience. And then for those that are, more, they want to, well, I guess all of us have this part that wants to rationalize our experience a little bit. We throw in just enough theory and science and a little bit of psychology to say, yeah, this is another layer of collective meaning for what we're experiencing here. That gets a little more mythical as we move through the stages. But in this first one, yeah, it's experience, collective meaning making, a little bit of theory, a little bit of movement, breaks, things like that.
For Australia, it's going to be 8. If you're on the east coast of Australia, it's 8 to 12 in the morning, Saturday till Tuesday. And I just want to say, people come out of this first stage of training, I think one of the big things they walk away with, yes, as a facilitator, skills, but really a expanded sense of self-awareness of what the listening is opening up. And that's where the aha comes in. That's really powerful. And then we're offering, after the stage 1 finishes, we're offering for the community a 9-month kind of steady rhythm, because really, as we've talked about, like, I'd like to say that self-awareness then is like, oh, great, my life is transformed. Actually, sorry, the hard work then begins. What then happens when I relate to my mother, my father, my children, my work, my community? What happens when I have a new idea? And really, it does take, it's that steady rhythm as you come into life and apply it. Start to make decisions and things start to transform and change, is that the other skills come in time. So we really find that that's the best way to do it, incrementally. And it's kind of amazing, because this is something that we both learnt offline, but we really have found that in the online community, that there is an amazing sense of people doing this all around the world, which is quite powerful. So yes, we do lose things from being online, but we also gain things. And we just talk a little bit about that as well, of those two modalities. I can't wait for Australians to come and join us. Come on. I am also sick of getting up in the middle of the night, so more Australians in this journey, the better.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited by it. And that was kind of the last two questions that I had, which you answered, Miriam, around like sounds like a great immersion of 4 days into learning the circle process. But then what happens after? And you kind of answered that with the 9-month follow-up, the practice and the consistency of relating with others. And so the last question I had was, would you suggest that this would be amazing for people to do with their family or with their loved ones, with their partners, or invite their community members along? Or is this a soul mission individual journey?
It's so useful to have community members along. It really is. Because one of the primary things, and this is what we talked about, Souvereign and Amani about, was one of the great things this gives you is really simply a shared language and a shared form to explore and learn with and through. So to come with community members, with family members, with the people that you want to practice this with loved ones. Sometimes loved ones are the hardest, sorry. But it is useful because then you can start applying it with that shared language.
That's amazing. Yeah, I assume that would have been the case where you can grow more together with those that you love most. Souvereign, I'd love to hear from you again if there's anything that you feel is relevant to share, or what your biggest takeaway was after doing the 4 days. And it seems like you're loving it because you want to do it again. But anything else that you feel is relevant to share?
Yeah, well, as many may know, I have myself lived in the territory of Far North Queensland, Australia for a decade, and there I explored and navigated in so many different ways the word community in so many stratas and forms. And it's where I have the most experience around how far removed community actually is from being community, because it's such a almost arbitrary word in some spheres. And yeah, I just really like to encourage anybody in my own demographic where I used to live to really consider this, because thus far, life has been great. Life's been yum, and community has been forming. But from my own comprehension, that deeper sense of community and that deeper sense of coherence and connectivity that goes beyond singular facilitation of a person that went to go and did a specific modality of a specific form that now has become a specific facilitator of that. And I'm not saying, not diminishing that, but there is great value in something that is much more alive and doesn't create discursive identity. Like, we call this a facilitator training because you're learning how to facilitate, but it's not to give you a badge of honor that now you are this new identity of yourself. If you want to, walk around with that of course is beautiful as well. But this is really about the structural and integral relationship building tools that I have as a takeaway that really benefit being received in a community that I know very well. And so that's where I'm going to push this onto the Far North Queensland Sustainability Alliance and groups and circles along those tracks, so that some of the people of the F&Q Rising Collective may actually sense like, hey, there's an opportunity here. Because my question is not to create a problem story, but how good has it really been working with all the amazing fantasies that have been had for the New Earth sanctuaries and these beautiful communities to come together and function. I know some of the intricacies of the communities that have tried to get themselves off the ground. And I know from my own experience why communities fail in so many different ways. And that is why I am so pleased to have a conversation here, because there are answers that they are both tomorrow's answers, but they come from far back and very far back in our so-called yesterdays. And to bring those worlds together in a format where, as Adam said, there is no ownership, because this was with our forefathers for many, many, many generations. This was a simple way of how I know it from my training from my grandmothers. These are just life ways. And until they become life ways, they are limited in their capacity to bring about what their inherent capacity really is. And that's something that I see that we need more of in this world that is in transition, that is both in lockdown and mayhem and all these things. We really benefit expanding our capacity within even friendship and even partnerships to better our comprehension of who are we as humans, because fundamentally that is what we get to look at as well. It's like, who am I? How do I listen? How do I show up? How present am I? And because it shines light on unexamined assumptions or unexplored territory, because nobody put language to it, all of a sudden there's things that are being seen, and a vision space opens up. And that to me is an expansion of awareness, which particularly through my personal experience, it just allowed more grace to come into my experience. And that is, grace only comes about through surrender. Grace doesn't come because you declare it. I want some grace now. The grace comes because I make myself available for more spaciousness. The spaciousness is there. And so I like to invite anybody to step into more spaciousness within community, within listening, within relating. And this is a beautiful way to step into that. So yeah, like to hear a bit from Adam in some closing remarks. If you have some more questions, Shay, but
thanks, Sovereign. I love your shares. No, I would love to hear from you as well, Adam. Haven't done this work for some time now. Kind of the succession that you've seen in your own growth potentially, with where you're at now from where you started and why you got into this.
How much time do you have? Just kidding. That was a joke. I want to pick up on something that Souvereign said, which was about like facilitation models and adding another badge of honor to, or a badge of honor to our, or another thing on our resume. People can do that. They can come to our training and get a certification, and that can be important, and we don't dismiss that. But one of the things that I think is a bad habit of communities and of leaders or people trying to make change is that we think that something, if we identify with something new and kind of continue to just add to our toolbox, that it will fix the problem. When the toolbox is the problem, the badges of honor are the problem if we are identified with them, and the spirit of the name Open Circle is that there is no defined system, right? It's like there's all of these kind of archetypal forms and patterns, and they get renewed in different times. They get renewed in different environments. They grow differently in different places. And the spirit that we're trying to, pass on is just openness and flexibility and the ability to be really nimble in how we're moving together, whether we're facilitating something that we're a part of or moving through community as a participant in communion with everything that's happening. To pick up those identities as they're useful, but also be willing to just drop them, pick up the tool when it's useful and also drop it when it's more useful to do that. And yeah, I think that, gosh, my own experiences of that, man, I've been doing circle stuff since I was like 13 years old, and in and out of it for a period. But the things that I've learned from listening to. I remember listening to in a circle when I was like 13 or 14, a recovering heroin addict. And, you know, this was someone who, like, in my mind was very other. You know, I was like 14 years old, and, you know, there was things going on in my high school with my high school peers, but here was a guy who'd been in and out of prison, and he was in a circle with a bunch of kids and telling his story, not as like, I'm informing you so you stay away from drugs, but just as I'm another human being here. And my experience, which I often share about because it was so profound to me, of going into prisons and training incarcerated folks to facilitate, just continually shattered it shattered to the point that it started to scare me, even my sense of like, I'm not them. Is Shay gone? Yeah.
Yes, it looks like Shay is. Oh, he's coming back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just I was saying it just it continually shattered my sense of like, my protective sense of like, I'm not them. I'm not a murderer. I'm not a rapist. I'm not violent. I'm not whatever. A parentless child, you know, whatever it was that I thought insulated me from the craziness and the turbulence of the world and what it is to be human, just was shattered again and again and again. And what that did, it gave me access to parts of myself that that both scared me and liberated me. You know, it's like I'm capable of being the good white guy coming in as a volunteer, you know, and sharing good practices with people and helping them. But I'm also capable of, like, you know, capable just by being human of everything that they're capable of, that we're capable of. And that life just, you know, it's mysterious how we make choices and how we move through it. So to me, you know, that was the biggest liberating breakthrough of my life in terms of circle stuff. And I think it happens in, you know, different for everybody. We all have a different story. We all have something different we need to break through at different times. But it's like those layers of resistance that we create to change and to transformation are usually there for a good reason. And they're usually they break down when they need to. So I think we're just opening up an opportunity for people to break through that and then be free when they're working with other people, and not like, you're wrong and I'm right, so follow my rules, kind of thing, when you're working with people and making decisions. But we're in this together, and we're all capable of whatever we believe in, really. So
yeah, thanks for sharing, Adam. That's huge. I really appreciate you guys in dedicating, you know, your precious time and energy on this planet to this cause, and can see that it's already had a huge impact on the Brave New Life online community, and I'm excited to experience it for myself and to grow some more and learn some more. And thanks for Souvereign for also, you know, bringing this integrated into the community as well. So you guys have already completed 3 trainings, which many people have been through for the Brave New Life members. And we got one more coming up, which is next month on September. And yeah, this is an invitation for anyone to jump on board and join us. I'll be there, Souvereign will be there, Adam will be there, and Miriam will all be there. So it's going to be very, very exciting little journey. A powerful 4 days, I'm sure, and something that goes beyond just the 4 days. We can practice it with each other ongoing. And I know I'll be sharing this video with my closest friends and families to invite them to get along and join us as well. And if you're enjoying this, or if you've benefited from the circles, we'd really appreciate if you wanted to share this with your friends and family who you feel could benefit from this practice and this training as well, because these opportunities don't always come around, and when they do, it's a great moment in time to recognize it, that it can serve us, can have a really great function for this evolution, this changing, this shift, this incredible moment in time for us to really harness this moment for a more beautiful world that we can find ourselves in, a more harmonious and cohesive world to operate and to live in. So I'm truly grateful. Thank you guys so much for just giving us this opportunity, and I am so excited. I'm going to pull up that image one more time for those who'd like to join us. I have left a link in the description. So you'll see it starts September 11th to the 14th, and that will be 8 a.m. for people in Cairns, Melbourne, and Sydney, or 6 a.m. if you're in Bali or Perth, and 10 a.m. if you're in New Zealand. So great opportunity to join us. And then in the Americas, it would just be, it's the same training. It would be the day before because of the time difference. In Pacific time, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. Eastern. So great opportunity. Jump on board, guys. We would love to see you there and have you there. And thanks again for your time today, guys, and sharing your experience and your stories. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you so much for having us and sharing this work. You know, you're like being a delivery device for what we're sharing. You know, it means a lot, and I think it shows the community that you've built, or the vision that you've invited other people into is so big, that I appreciate that it needs more stewards, and that you're taking those steps. So thank you for being a part of that and helping us support you in that.
Yay. So good. Yeah, thank you. Really, really great to be here. Looking forward.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.